and I believe we are online. Good evening, one and all, and welcome to tonight's lounge live stream with me, your host Raymond. Uh, Many of you might know I work as senior writer for Buddhist Global, and tonight I am absolutely delighted to have on as our special guest Yujiro Seki. He is the writer, director, and producer of an amazing film called Carving the Divine. And it is, I've watched it, I've reviewed it, and it has been shown around the world. And it's going to be one of the subjects that we discuss tonight, along with many more, I hope. Yujiro, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, first of all, I must ask, how have you been? How are you?
It's been a long journey. I never thought it would be this long journey. I thought I'm going to whip something up and, that's it. And just to show it to a few friends and just move on in my life. But it doesn't seem like it's been like this. So what I imagined. So
No, yeah, I mean, like the project has taken on a life of its own, hasn't it?
yes, I mean, as a filmmaker, we all have an ego, I think,
Mm.
like, you want to make something that inspires people, that's one thing. And
Yeah,
maybe, you become a famous director,
yeah.
something like Steven Spielberg, in my case, Akira Kurosawa was my hero, you know.
Everyone knows Akira Kurosawa. Yeah.
So, I wanted to make a period film, samurai movies, I had all the dream when I was young, when I was in high school, ever
Mm.
since that I made my first film, a detective film. Uh,
Right, it was a detective film.
yes. It's like a comedy detective film. It's
That is
like,
so interesting.
yeah, it's an imitation of like a popular culture, pretty much.
Right, and you mentioned Akira Kurosawa as your probably one of your main inspirations. Were there any other great directors, whether in Japanese cinema or in Hollywood that particularly inspired you during your youth?
Well, I think I was not particularly interested in cinema, to be honest with you,
Mm,
till I made my first movie.
right.
Uh, I was doing acting, I was doing the theater,
Mm,
and my senior friends,
yeah.
they made a film,
Yeah.
and I was so fascinated, but the subject matter was kind of lame. Uh,
Yeah.
high school kids trying to find the marijuana and get
Yeah.
high. That was I was thinking about. Nah, I can do better than that. I want to make
Yeah.
a better movie. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and I wanted to make a detective film. I was infatuated by the popular culture, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. And I just fell in love with the process. It was nothing like what I experienced before previously.
So this is very important because we're talking about several art forms. And this is why I'm so delighted to have you come on here to discuss with us because sooner or later we'll get into the Buddhist perspective. But I think as Buddhists, we should discuss culture. We should discuss art, and right now you're discussing about your transition from, theater, acting into the actual process of filmmaking, which is what you said you fell in love with. Is that accurate?
Correct. It was nothing like that I ever experienced before.
Yep.
You create out of nothing. It's a magic. It's
Yeah.
just when you think about it, it's an individual imagery or video. Splice it together
Mm,
and you create the meaning out of it.
right.
So in a sense, you it can be used to manipulate people, or it can be used to do something good for people. I didn't think about that back then, but this process itself was so fascinating to me. Just making a story out of nothing. So that
Right.
has nothing to do with Buddhism or whatever.
Yeah.
That was my fascination toward this new form of art.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think for a lot of people, filmmaking has a certain kind of mystique and romance. Now, maybe after working on something for so long, you might already sort of have heard it all before. But have you ever encountered people who say, "Wow, I didn't know that you could combine, Buddhism and filmmaking together." Like, or is it actually is the market for Buddhist themed films actually larger than we thought? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think the film for Buddhist, it's a still small market, I think, but it's bigger than I thought. Because like every month, like a tricycle has a new movie,
Yeah.
Buddhist movie. If you are a member of a film club, and they are actually trying to create like this like a Buddhist themed film streaming platform, not
Yes. Yes.
tricycle or somebody else,
Yeah.
Buddhist foundation or something, right? So there's a demand for it,
Mm.
but at the same time, I feel like many of the films, if you are not Buddhist, it's irrelevant, but it is a little bit difficult to connect with the people who are not so interested in Buddhism, if that makes sense. Because when you get into the field, you have already have idea set in mind. I'm going to learn something about Buddhism. So if you are not interested in Buddhism, I mean, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that makes perfect sense. And actually, I've struggled with this for the longest time as myself as a journalist, but in reporting specifically on Buddhism, your subject matter is important, but to be able for people to understand the stakes, it's completely a different ball game. And I think one of the struggles of Buddhist filmmaking is, as you said, it's like, what if I'm number one, not Buddhist? And what if I'm not interested in Buddhism as a religion, per se? Then why should I care about your film? I think that's probably the most uncomfortable question any Buddhist director could ask themselves, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. We gotta put this into perspective too. Like,
Yeah.
are you interested in watching like a Christian themed film?
Yeah.
Maybe you are, but at the same time, I mean, do you want to pay to watch
Yeah.
a Christian film?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a question that you ask, right? As a Buddhist,
Yeah.
right? So you might be interested in any religion. You might be interested in Christianity, of course. You might be interested in Islam too. But at the same time, the core audience of Buddhist films are Buddhist.
Yeah.
Yeah, simple enough. So, but would you think of it as a Dharma perspective, and to try to invite the people from a different culture, different belief system to get
Yeah.
into the world of Buddhism, right? You
Yes.
know,
Exactly.
Dharma can be very too strong for the first timer.
Yes.
The teaching is too strong. Why do I want to listen to the teaching? That kind of things, right? No,
Yeah.
so that's why I think the film like a Carving the Divine is a little bit different, because it's uh coming from the perspective of art, first of all,
Yeah.
Buddhist statue making.
Right.
So yeah, so I mean, you don't need to really be a Buddhist to watch this documentary. We talk about a little bit of Buddhism to understand, to get people understand the you know uh, basic culture of it, but we don't go too deep enough to confuse people.
Right. Exactly. So that's really the dilemma, and I think this is also another question. You set off with all these understandings and all these you were armed with all this knowledge, but you still pushed ahead to make a film that even though it is not obviously explicitly saying, "Oh, Buddhism" on top of the name, on top of the title, it is very much so Buddhist sculptures, Buddhist statues, and all this Buddhist themes. So I just want to give everyone a heads up that Carving the Divine will talk about what it's about very soon. And if you have any questions, this is a very rare opportunity that we've got, a filmmaker on the stream. So please feel free to ask any questions you want, and Yujiro will answer them. Anyway, back to your discussion, where we know all this stuff, but yet you pushed ahead with the Buddhist element. What was your reasoning? What was the rationale?
What do you mean what do you mean by that?
Well, it's very, the content is very explicitly Buddhist, so like you in some ways, were you prepared to restrict your audience, or
No. I mean, to be honest with you, I wanted to make a film that speaks to everybody. That's the first dream, right? Like the dream for every filmmaker to connect with everybody, which is
I
not
see.
possible, but that was the goal, right? So that's the first thing. So I don't want this film to be only for Buddhists. To be honest with you, it's not like every Buddhist is interested in statues.
Yeah.
Some Buddhists, they don't believe in statues. Well, they put the less emphasis on the use of statues.
Right.
So in some sense, as I go through this journey, I found out it doesn't mean every Buddhist is interested. This is a very interesting point to find out your market of your film. As I go through different festivals around the world,
Right.
first of all, I understand this film will speak to most of the people around the world. I don't want to say everybody because there's no such a thing as everybody. Some people might not like it. That's fine. But
Right.
I mean, I went to Dominican Republic, and I frankly thought, I thought people was gonna think this is idolatry, and you know, I mean, only true God is Jesus. And why are you showing this film to us? That's what I thought. Maybe I could get that kind of reaction from people.
Yeah.
But the reaction was very different. Very, very different. People are very awestruck by it. And when the statue, if there's a scene, the statue is being completed, right? I'm not gonna talk too details about the film, but when that happened, people start clapping.
Right.
People start giving the applause. I
Yeah.
was like, wow, this is interesting. And I mean, after the film, I talked to people, and I discovered something different. It's
Yeah.
like they're interested in the discipline that Japanese people go through to make a great art.
Yeah.
The relationship between master and apprentices. In Latin culture, it seems like I don't want to misrepresent Latin people or anything, but there's a lack of discipline in the culture. They're really
Lack
good
of
with
discipline. Okay.
the discipline. Yes, they're really good with you know, uh, taking things easy.
Yeah.
I mean, they are very optimistic, but many of them lack the sense of discipline like a Japanese people.
Right.
There are negative aspect about this for Japanese people, because Japanese people are too disciplined, they're too perfectionist. They
Hey,
go, they make themselves
we are
crazy.
we are criticizing everybody here, so don't worry.
Exactly. So like in a sense, like Latin Americans, in my opinion, they are not Buddhist, but they are more Buddhist than most of us, I feel, because they live in the moment. Like there's only present, right?
Yeah.
Instead of
Exactly.
thinking about the past and thinking of the future. And like we Asian, we claim to be Buddhist, but we cannot practice it. And
Yeah.
when you go to Latin America, people say I'm Christian, Catholic, and they are practicing more Buddhism than we are practicing Buddhism. I always felt really interesting.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the point is that they saw the different in that perspective. It's
Yeah.
a very culturally different. So you don't need to be a Buddhist to watch this film. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. The film was shown in uh, Iraq film
Iraq.
festival.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. How could they accept a film which has a lot of idolatries in their eyes?
Yeah.
The idolatry is the worst thing you can do. One of the worst things you can do in Islam.
Yes.
You cannot make a figure representing God,
Yeah.
which is a rather shallow perspective. We all know that statues are not like that. But
Yeah.
for people who don't know anything about this tradition, think it is we trying to create the God, actual God.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
There is that misconception. Yeah.
misconception. But so besides, because of that, it's a really easy for them to just to reject the film, right? We're not showing this to our people. This is crazy, right? But
Yeah.
they decided to show it because the area the film festival was going to held, they are heavily active on wood carving. It was a wood carving city.
Wood carving. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So here comes another point. I talked to you about it doesn't mean every Buddhist is interested, but wood carvers and sculptors and artists, they are interested.
Right.
It turned out to be people who work in the art field could be more interested in this film than Buddhist. Isn't it interesting?
Yeah. That's very that's fascinating. Uh, I think partly it has to do with again the appreciation of the art itself. So
Right.
I mean, like you can talk a lot. Like it depends on your emphasis. When you're talking about carving Buddhist sculptures, you can talk about all the iconography, the religious background, and the history, and we've done that before, I think.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
the techniques, appreciating how it comes to life, how it's created, that is important, isn't it?
No, no, absolutely. So, I mean, I could have taken this in a whole different way. Sometimes people say, well, I wanted to know more history about the, Buddhist statues. Yeah, sure. I could have thrown more histories in it, but my focus would be shifted. And
Yeah,
somebody, can talk about the history. It doesn't need to be me.
yeah,
Does it make sense? Like people who know more about the history of Buddhist statues, they can talk about history. It doesn't need to be me. Why am I making this film? That's the
yeah.
question. So yes.
So let's get into the little bit of the meat of the film. And just for anyone who's interested, you can visit www.carvingthedivine.com. That's one word, www.carvingthedivine, one word.com, and see this what this movie is all about for yourself. We'll provide some resources after the stream in the comment down in the Facebook link, so don't miss out. Um, Tell us a little bit about the general theme of the film.
Well, the film is about the Buddhist sculptors of Japan, the
Yeah,
modern Buddhist sculptors of Japan, not historical Buddhist sculptors of Japan,
yeah,
who live in the 21st century, still making statues in a traditional way,
yeah,
passing down techniques from one generation to another. So that's the main theme behind it, and how they live, their training, and
yeah.
you get to see the beautiful art being made.
Mm.
You know that that's kind of thing.
Yeah, this is incredible. Now, of course, thanks to your film, many more people in the world know about this discipline of the bushi, right? The bushi. This is their formal Japanese title, as I understand. And
Correct.
you know, this is a slightly uncomfortable question. Were they famous in Japan? Are they well known among like the as a group of people in Japan, or because my understanding is that Japan has become very secularized in the last few decades, and so um, there was even a many articles both in Japanese and English about the decline of Buddhism in Japan, and so I'm just thinking like even the Bushi, who are the like a homegrown Japanese tradition discipline, might not be that well known in Japan. What do you have some opinion on that?
Well, to be honest with you, most of the Japanese people probably even haven't heard of the name Bushi. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Oh.
Yeah. So even for Japanese people to watch my documentary is somewhat new and different.
Wow.
Yes. But Japanese people are the people who lost the spirituality. Not everybody, but we are so brainwashed. I don't want to say brainwashed by science and uh, the capitalism and all this. And I mean, we are thinking these things as a superstition of the past. You know, so maybe not everybody, but we have a tendency to focus on worldly thing, worldly success.
Right.
Yes.
I see. Look, I watched your film. I found it not just technically amazing, but when I was watching the Bushi work on their wooden sculptures of the Buddha, Bodhisattvas, and also all other figures, there was an amazing kind of meaning that they seem to find in their work, and it was not necessarily religious. It had to do with just feeling like being part of something bigger, even if it's not very well known, even if it's not exactly sort of going to lead to some sort of very very high income or something, but it was the work in itself is profound and it's meaningful, and I'm just quite stunned by the fact that even though Japan um, has so many rich spiritual traditions, that it seems that secularism and in some ways materialism continues to relentlessly influence Japanese society and culture. It's quite it's both a bit surprising and also a bit sad.
Yes. It's partly because of the fact that Japan lost the World War II.
Right.
And no doubt about it. We before we had a very strong connection with the spirituality. I didn't live that time, so I cannot tell you exactly what it was. And
Yeah.
They had a Kokka Shinto, means like the imperial government of Japan promote Shinto as a state religion, right?
Yes.
So if that's like a good thing or bad thing, that's not the question we are asking. But Japanese people are more connected to spirituality,
Right.
before the war. And to be honest with you, I mean, when you start thinking about everything in the material level,
Yeah.
It is very difficult to find the meaning in life. Like that's what I discovered when I travel Latin America. I would like give an example of Latin America. Even though people have a less over there,
Yeah.
many people have a less over there, they are very connected to God.
Yes.
They say thank you God, and I mean they appreciate God, and God this and God that. You
Yeah.
can criticize them all you want, but you know they know they are strong,
Yes.
they are grounded,
Yeah.
because whatever happens there's always God with them, right? That's kind of spirituality, even though maybe I mean some people might think oh yeah, Jesus Christ, God, and the Holy Spirit, it doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not good for me. But if you believe in strong enough,
Yeah.
this is your how am I going to say it? If this is going to be your foundation in your life. Religion and spirituality is the foundation of your life. And if you don't have that, many of us are lost.
Yes.
Because in the end, you know the material things is a very illusional thing.
Yeah.
If you become a famous, I haven't become famous, so I cannot tell you how to feel when you're famous. But there's no end to this kind of greed, right? If you become a famous, you want to be more famous. If you have a nice house, you want to have a nicer house, and you're driven by the greed. And I mean, I'm not criticizing that, but in the end, I feel we get stuck. What's there?
Yeah,
what else is there?
Because there is never enough. It just keeps on going more and more and more. And when it comes to materialism, there'll always be someone who has more than you. There'll always be someone who, in that respect, is better than you. And I think one of the most tragic things, as you said about in your travels in Latin America, you've made this wonderful observation, and it seems to be quite true of much of the global South, right? It's like people have less, but they seem to be much happier overall. And
Right.
here you are in, Japan, one of the most advanced and peaceful and wealthy nations in the world, and people are lost and unhappy, or at least that's my impression. People are very unhappy in general, but then the spirituality is right there in the face, staring them in the face.
Yes, and we commit, so many suicides.
Oh, yeah,
Why?
that's so sad. Yeah,
Why? If you have a spirituality as a foundation in your life,
yeah,
you're less likely to commit suicide. That's my opinion. Because you have nothing, that's why you have no choice left
yeah,
but
yeah,
killing yourself. Of course, that's like only general observation. There are many different reasons to commit suicide. I don't want to make everything for spirituality. Some people, go mentally really crazy, and
yeah,
they just leave this planet.
yeah,
But I mean, if you are unhappy, if you don't get what you want,
yeah,
I mean, there's nothing going on in your life, and you feel empty, you
yeah,
know in that sense, if you have some kind of spirituality, you are grounded. And
yes,
we lack that as a Japanese. But it's a funny thing you mentioned, because great spirituality is right in front of us. That's
absolutely.
the craziest part. If you
Yeah,
tap into, you know, any of the uh, Buddhist teaching, for example, through any of the Buddhist sect, Japanese Buddhist sect,
yeah,
you realize, wow, this is how people in the past were trying to solve the problem.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I'm always surprised, and sometimes it's a very simple.
Yes,
You know, yet we say, well, we should, get a promotion. If I get that promotion, I'll be happy.
yeah, like this is so important. Like you said that even Japanese viewers watching your film are surprised by this new world that they're being shown. Any other feedback that you might have heard from Japanese people about the film, like
Here's the
anything?
thing. It's very interesting. This is how, as I travel through different festivals, I find out a lot about the film.
Mm,
Because as a creator, I don't know how people would react, right?
yeah,
For the first time. Your only way to figure it out is to see the reaction and hear from people.
right,
And this film speaks to foreigners a lot more than Japanese.
really,
It's
okay,
interesting. This is like a quintessential Japanese culture, right? Japanese tradition, but it speaks to more foreigners than Japanese. You know, partly because we are the people who lost the spirituality.
right,
when I go to different countries, even the United States, people are somewhat connected to spirituality. Not everybody, of course, but they value things bigger than yourself.
Yeah. Actually, I recently read a Pew research. Like Pew was very famous in the U.S. about how Americans, even if they were losing interest in organized religion, they're still actually quite interested in spirituality. Like there's a majority of people who believe in unseen things,
Right,
like
right, right.
like fate or guiding spirits and things like that. So you can debate the merits of those things all you want, but it would seem, as you said, it's so extraordinary that Japan seems to have lost the thing decisively. It seems to have lost the interest in spirituality decisively, while in the West, or from the foreign perspective, carving the divine seems to resonate with them.
Yes, exactly. Even though they're not Buddhist, they understand
Yeah.
that desire to connect with the divine is universal.
Yes.
So, but for some reason, Japanese people, I feel like they lost the ability to try.
Really.
I feel, I mean, from my experience, for example, when I first showed my film, the feature film at Madrid International Film Festival, I invited people to come, and the Japanese directors, producers, they come to watch the film, and also Americans,
Yeah.
directors and producers, came to watch the film, right? And it's interesting, right? This is a kind of study. I didn't even think about it, right? Like I was just observing people and to see how they react and everything. And Americans are like looking to the film so carefully. They never uh, lost their attention. And after the film, they were like, oh, "Wow, I've never seen anything like this before. I never knew this kind of world existed."
Yeah. It's a very positive, very
Yeah,
very
and,
passionate. Yeah.
they were coming from genuine place. I can tell,
Mm.
and they were like, "Wow, you made something amazing." That's what they say, right?
Yeah.
And the Japanese directors, they came up to me and they told me, they go, well, they were kind of surprised. They were so impressed. I wonder why. That's kind of reaction. That difference. So
It's quite a big one. It's quite a big difference.
big difference. Big difference. Of course, like there are a few people who came up to me. There are Japanese people who are spiritual, and there's like a costume designer lady who came up to me and told me, "You show me something sacred, and thank you so much." That's kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But uh, it seems like it does not impress Japanese people as much as it impress foreigners. So it's interesting. No, I understand it's not only spirituality, but also the way of living is not so particularly interesting for Japanese people because it's a normal thing to be disciplined. You know,
Yes.
they probably had a teachers like that before. So
Yeah.
yeah. And the bodhisattvas, the Buddhas, they say it like everywhere, the temples and all this. So there's not the only reason why they could not connect with the film as much as Americans are, not because they lack the spirituality. Also, it lacks the curiosity.
They lack the curiosity. I think that's the critical thing.
Right.
I think also you talk a lot. You just right now you talked about the way like the Japanese could relate, and in some ways that means they're not so interested in like the lives of the bushi. Because you spend a lot of time in the film, you know, um, showing what a bushi's lifestyle is like. It's very disciplined, very uh, it's very heavily dependent on hierarchical relationships. So it's like um, you have to have a teacher to teach you how to how to carve wood sculptures. And I would just wonder, like, what do you think? What do you think is the core message? Like, what do you think that the Bushi can teach us? You know, normal everyday people about life. Like what is there anything particularly profound that you saw in their lifestyle or in what they do?
Well, the entire film is meant to ignite somebody's own experience in life.
Right.
So it has a less to do with my message.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care about my message. First of all, that's the thing. After I finished the film,
Yeah.
and after hearing from people how they felt, my experience is nothing. People's experience is the most important thing. I want them to discover something about themselves.
Yeah.
And the Bushi can teach people something different. Each person can learn something different from them. Maybe, I'm going to talk about the style of the documentary a little bit.
Yeah,
This
sure, please.
style of documentary is like more like a direct cinema style,
Yeah.
fly on the wall. So I'm there to take a hand of the people
Yeah.
and take them from one place to another.
Mm.
So my intention is not to influence people.
Yeah.
My intention is not to give my opinion and tell people this is the world has to look like.
Yeah.
It seems like a many documentary follow this format. Like I have an opinion about certain things, right? If I'm going to make a film about the environment or something, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna gather all the evidence that I need to convince you that we have to protect the environment.
Yeah.
And if I find any conflicted information about that, I hide it, and they
I ignore
totally
it. Yeah.
try to give the the point that I want to tell people.
Yeah.
I learned that from my own hand, my experience, like when I was in college, we made an exercise documentary about the nuclear energy.
Yeah.
Nuclear energy is bad, not good. We shouldn't
Yeah.
have it. That was our point, right?
Yeah.
And we interviewed the professor
Yeah.
of the field, and he started talking about that's not really what it is. It's really important to have it. It's a very effective form of energy and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And we decided to not use him because it was not proving our
Yeah.
point.
And so that's when the personal agenda gets in the way, I
Right.
think, of in the when it comes to fiction, like a film, like a fictional film, it gets in the way of telling a good story, right? A personal agenda, right?
Right.
And then for the documentary, which is what Carving the Divine is, it gets in the way of presenting a good, like, presenting things as they are. And that's one of the strengths of your film. I sensed no judgment. I sensed no real opinion about how the Bushi did things, about how they lived their life. I think it's not for everyone. The life of a Bushi is not for everyone, but we can appreciate it on its own terms in your film.
Yes, can you imagine me making that film like a documentary about the nuclear energy, and it was an exercise from school. It went and nowhere. We just did it for the grade, right?
Right.
So it was okay for itself, and we have a limited amount of time. We could not explore the alternative opinions and all that. We couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I was making my own film about something like this, and I just want to twist the fact just because I want to prove my point, and that happens all the time everywhere,
Yeah.
left or right. People do that all the time. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to make the non-judgmental film, which emphasizes on viewers more than myself. That's why my opinion or how I feel about the statues irrelevant.
Yeah. So this is also, as you said, you wanted to focus on the viewers. I think you, as a director and as a filmmaker, actually, all directors and filmmakers have to approach their film with the viewer in mind. That's why the director exists, so that they can deploy with, they can decide which shot to use. They can, think about the pacing and like which angle would be better and which music would be the best for the scene. So do you think that your film Carving the Divine is at like a viewer centric experience, like you are putting the viewer right in the middle of all this creation of Buddha statues and things like that? It's quite a special experience, I think. I think that's why Americans and foreigners, they seem to like it a lot.
That was my intention, and also my intention evolved,
Yeah,
over the a period of time.
yeah,
I had a more talking head interviews in the beginning
yeah,
from the students, like apprentices,
yeah,
and I wanted to just throw them in my film,
yeah.
but I realized they don't really tell me the truth.
Right.
They just only say the nice things,
Yeah,
right? Oh, because of my master, I'm, getting better. Oh, without my master, I'm nothing. Oh, I respect my master. This kind of things. But behind that, they go through a lot of, emotional struggle.
yes,
You know,
yes,
you might want to quit.
yeah,
You might think that, oh my gosh, this my master is asshole. So
yes, yeah, yeah,
how can it be this mean, right? But they never say that, right? So that's a very Japanese too, culturally. And obedience is like very important for learning the craft.
yeah,
So they never tell me the truth,
yeah,
and there was no point of me to use that in those interviews.
yeah,
So yeah, so I mean, I show the interviews for the special feature,
yeah,
like for the people to take a look at it, but in the film itself it doesn't show up. The only talking head interview we got is like Master Yamada, who
yeah,
talks about a little bit of different types of statues and all this, but other than that I eliminated all that because
yeah.
I mean it just it does not bring the authenticity.
Yeah, yeah. I think uh, I learned a lot watching some of the scenes of the teachers, the senior bushi. They The way they discipline and the way they criticize the the junior students. That A single scene like that tells me more than you know half an hour with a talking head and just they're just saying everything that they want people to hear. And that
Right,
is
right,
not
right, right.
that really, as you said, that is not doing justice to the full story.
Mhm. Also, it's a cultural thing.
Mm,
Japanese people don't talk about the whole truth.
yeah,
In front of camera and all this, they
yeah,
have a tendency to say nice things. Like
yes,
be that let's put it in perspective. Like for example, when I go to the United States, I'm at the train station. I meet somebody. I talk to him, and if we get along, he starts talking about his whole life story, right? I
yeah,
got
yeah.
I
That's
got
another extreme.
divorced,
Yeah,
right? Like but my girlfriend just I caught her sleeping with some other man, or I things that I don't need to know for the first time,
yeah, yeah.
right?
That's a little
Yeah,
bit. That's a little bit of an other extreme, isn't it? Yeah, yeah,
yeah. But for Japanese people would never do that. I mean, maybe in a rare occasion you find those people, but majority of the time, like the conversation at the train station would be very, very superficial level.
yes, yes, yes.
So to be close to Japanese people, it takes time. You don't become a best friends, when they just when you meet them for the first time. It could happen, but most of the time it takes time to break the ice, break the wall.
Yeah,
So when I just go there and try to get the interview from people that in front of a camera, people become self-conscious and they don't tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I should have known that better, but I got the interview anyway. And then later I regret it. I was like, wow, man, I didn't get anything out of it what I wanted,
A little bit. Did it feel like a little bit of a wasted opportunity, or would you just say no? This, he would not have opened up. So this is getting a little bit into the journalistic aspect. It's like, look, what is the purpose of an interview? And so whether you're a reporter or whether you're a filmmaker like yourself, you wanted the interview to reveal something, to share some information. And so, like, do you think that you could have? Do you think the problem lay with your end, or do you think it was just no? This is the cultural thing. This is simply that they were not going to reveal what I wanted them to. In the first place, they had no plans to.
I would say it's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I could have come up with better questions. Of course, there are always possibilities for that. But
Right.
they will not tell you
Yeah.
how much they hate masters. They will not tell you.
Yeah.
Even though they think like this. They could be thinking like this.
Yes.
But when you see them in action, you feel it.
Yeah, I could in one of the scenes. Unfortunately, I can't quote it directly, but in one of the scenes, you can feel the resentment that the student feels for the teacher, and the teacher likewise has no patience for the student. He's fed up. He's like, what are you even doing here? And the student is kind of like staring at somewhere else, trying not to look at his sensei with hatred. And so I recommend everybody to really go look at carvingthedivine.com to see for themselves, because it really is I think one of the things that you accomplish is to tell this story with no fuss, minimal intervention, and that's why those interviews probably were not very helpful. Is that right?
Correct. Also, we want to keep in mind that in Buddhist community, and also your Christian community, or like a Islamic community, we want to talk about the love, right? Love, love is great, love is awesome, whatever, right? But love comes from different forms and shapes, and sometimes what you think is not love is love, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
so
totally.
So it is very difficult to be strict and also always an asshole to students. It's very difficult. But at the same time, if you are serious about the improvement of the students, and expecting the students to be the best version of themselves, you take a hard way. And at the time when the students are in training, they may not realize that.
Yeah.
But years later, it became more concrete, because of the skill set you have.
Yeah.
It's a proof.
Yes.
Of your accomplishment. And if a teacher hadn't been so strict on you, you would not ever be achieve that high level of craftsmanship. It's kind of goes the same to the martial art too, right?
Yeah.
So martial art is hard.
Yeah.
And you have to train hard, and you gotta be the best version of themselves. And if you everything's gonna be okay, okay, let's do it tomorrow. It's not going to be possible.
I think one of the greatest scenes in the movie, I'm not going to spoil it too much for everybody, but it is towards the end of the film when a completed sculpture is presented to a temple. I remember it very clearly, and the sense of pride that the Bushi feel, in actually, sort of offering this commissioned piece of work of the Buddhist sculpture to the temple that paid for it, I think is, it's like, as you said, the students realize what a profound moment this is. And without that harsh training and without that rigor, they would never have made it to this moment.
Correct, correct. One of the things that is a self-evident about this documentary is the art, right?
Yeah,
So people are very impressed with the art.
yeah,
I don't need to even convince people,
yeah,
right? I don't need to put the narration. This is a bodhisattva and 12 head canon, 11 head canon, you
yeah,
know, and the blah blah blah, this and that. I don't need to explain all this. That's
yeah,
like destroy the whole divinity behind the artwork.
exactly.
By looking at it, you feel it.
Yeah,
That's the point. That if you want me to like tell you my intention, yes, I wanted people to have a divine experience. This is my intention. Yes, if I was be able to achieve it or not, that's another story. But at least this was a intention, and through the divine experience, I hope people can discover something about themselves.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think as we mentioned before, one of the strengths of your documentary is that it lets the scenes tell their own story. You don't insert yourself into it. There's very little there's very little Yujiro in it, but therefore the divine is much clearer.
Oh, sorry, I was reading something.
Yeah, no, no,
I
great.
said again, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Suddenly this question popped out. I was like,
I'll read out the question for you, and hopefully you give an answer,
Okay,
Yujiro.
okay.
Can you give a frank comment on so-called Buddhist films nowadays? What is their weakness and strength in general? Any particular movie you would recommend us to watch? And so, actually, this is alluding back to what we started earlier about the conversation about what is the problem with even conceptualizing Buddhist films. Like, and if there's any strengths about Buddhist films, maybe from an aesthetic or maybe from a conceptual point of view.
Well, I cannot speak everything, all the Buddhist films, right?
Right.
There could be films like mine too.
Mm.
It's a very direct, observational, and trying to tell the authentic truth. And I think many, some of them are that. But again, when you start categorizing the film as a Buddhist films, which I really don't want to categorize myself, my film into Buddhist films. It's
Yeah.
just a limit the possibility, and and also when you focus on teaching, you are limiting your film toward only people who are interested in learning about the Buddhism or Buddhist teaching.
Yes.
You know, but sometimes you need a door, right? Door to open up before you get into Dharma.
Yeah.
This is actually a sales pitch that I tell all the temples.
The sales pitch to the temples, exactly.
Because people sometimes say, "Hey, Dharma speaks for itself," right? Like, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You people who are not interested in Buddhism, they are not interested in Dharma.
Yeah,
How can
exactly. Yeah.
we get people interested in Dharma, you know, uh, before, even we start, right?
Yeah.
So, many situations, I mean, people get interested in something for entertainment, art, and the things like that. And the art, Buddhist statues, propel people to learn more about Buddhism than just giving the Dharma talk,
Yeah,
for example.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the person asked me an example, right?
Mm.
I forgot the name of the film, but there's a film about the Tic Tac Tar, right? I
Thich
never
Nhat
can
Hanh, yeah, the Zen master.
never can pronounce his name. I'm sorry for this,
No,
but
no, no, no problem.
but there's a documentary about the walking meditation thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot the name of it, but I watched the documentary, and it did not speak to me so much.
Yes.
I understand people suffer, and people try to find a way to uh, solve the problems in their life, past the mistakes and all this, all the baggage we have in life. And one of the things it's good is to do the walking meditation. I know there are more message than this, but I feel like when I saw it, it was more like a teaching and the experience of how life can be transformed
Yeah.
through Buddhism rather than something other than Dharma. It is not Dharma, but it is. I felt like okay, through Buddhism we can transform our life.
Yeah, I think that's part of the dilemma of the Buddhist filmmaker. It's like, how much emphasis do you want to place on yourself as a Buddhist, right? So, whatever the religion, every religious message is a message, right? It's trying to push something. Whereas as a filmmaker, you want to create art first and foremost, I think.
Correct. Again, I'm not criticizing people making Buddhist films. This is great. Some people can transform their life through the walking meditation, and the monk is great, awesome person.
Yeah.
I agree, but at the same time, what you can put it into somebody's shoes who's not interested in Buddhism.
Yes.
Okay, that's great and everything, but my minister, he's a great guy too. My Christian minister from the Baptist church, he does so much good thing, and he helps so many people, and he helped me. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
So, I am a Christian. I rather follow Christianity than Buddhism. Once you are in set state of mind, it is very difficult people to open up their minds and explore something. And even something like a carving the divine, people would never give it a chance because they think it's an idolatry. They think they're gonna go against their belief system, their religion, their God. It could happen there, but if the emphasis is teaching, it's going to be very difficult to draw those people in. But
Yes, absolutely.
something like a carving the divine, people would watch it for the sheer sake of seeing the art.
Yes.
Even Islamic people watch the film. So I don't think they will never change their religion just because they watch my film. But at the same time, they are curious. They want to they want to know about the art.
Yeah, I think that's part of the. Oh, here's a recommended film, Malila, The Farewell Flower. So she's plugging this film, which is just fine. So it's a Thai film.
Okay.
So perhaps that might be worth watching as well.
I
think.
So Karen.
Yeah, thanks, Karen, for that. I think, as we and Karen also says exactly what qualifies a film as Buddhist. I think any film that seeks to see things as they are, the truth of the Dharma, is Buddhist film. So I think see things as they are is non-judgmentalism, right? Like what would you say about that? So we're running into 1 hour now, so we'll continue talking just maybe for a few more minutes. And what does it mean to you to make a Buddhist film if it's not about necessarily about the content, so to speak? Is it the spirit? Is it like, oh, let's be open-minded, let's be non-judgmental? What is it all about?
I think she said it perfectly. I cannot beat her, really.
Great.
No, because I mean, we are all judgmental. Let's face it. I'm a judgmental too. I'm making a judgment about the Buddhist films without watching all the Buddhist films in the world.
Right.
And maybe I'm over promoting myself as if my film is better than others. No, not really. No, that's not the case. I mean, as long as it reveals Dharma without overly preaching. I mean, film reveal itself is very important. I think it's a very nice way to put it. But then again, I never thought about making a Buddhist film. I never did. It happened to be the subject matter is Buddhist or Buddhist art, but at the same time, I wanted to speak to everybody in the world, idealistically. So if people interpret it as a Buddhist film, that's fine. But if people don't interpret it as a Buddhist film, that's fine too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think we're running towards the end of this stream. I think for Yujiro, as you are based in Japan, as I understand, it's already 10 p.m. at night. So if you have any questions for this amazing director, please please send us a comment as soon as possible, because we will be concluding the stream soon. Are there any sort of concluding thoughts that you have about your journey so far as a filmmaker? What have you learned from Carving the Divine, and what do you see yourself doing in the future based on the lessons that you have learned?
Well, the lesson is it's a journey that I'm going through, and to be honest with you, at this point, I'm very tired of this film.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I can't blame you.
And I'm so tired of over promotion to everywhere. I mean, people who don't know anything about the film itself, people know I'm a Carving the Divine guy.
Carving the Divine guy. Yeah.
Divine guy. Because after finishing the film, I knew by seeing people's reactions, it is something different. This is something special. Not because I made it, it's just because the way it is.
Yeah.
By seeing the reactions, and I mean, time after time, all the educated people, all the influential people, great martial artists, the scholars, and the historians, and everybody, Buddhist, they all say something good about this film, and they don't owe me anything. They don't need to be nice to me, but they do it anyway. And the film has a life of its own. And unfortunately, I'm the only person who can promote it. And I will force people to watch it. Hey, watch this film. If you watch it, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Please give me a chance. Give it a chance, please. And many people actually very doubtful in the beginning. Okay, I'll watch it, right? And they come up to me and they were like, "Wow, I never knew this world existed." It reminded of my life and my experience, my mother, and I mean, all sort of things I heard. And when I heard that, I was like, I guess I gotta keep going with it.
Yeah.
And recently, the film. I mean, if you are in Netherlands, you get to watch the 58 minutes version of this film. It's a TV length, and it was picked up by NPO.
NPO, yeah. And as we discussed earlier, it's a national Dutch broadcaster, right?
Correct. I don't know the detail. They said, I mean, it's owned by private company or whatever. But now. But I mean, definitely, it used to be a national-owned TV network, and then probably still it is. I don't know exactly how their politics work and everything, but yeah. So initially I thought it was picked up by Buddhist film station. I was thinking about, there's a Buddhist film station in Netherlands, and since it's about the Buddhist and Buddhism, so they wanted to show my film. That's what I thought. And I did not investigate it so carefully. I just signed the contract, and let's do it, right? Go show it to all the Buddhists in Netherlands, right? And people have been calling me and contacted me, and told me that this is actually national TV on December 31st. I was like, what? So it's just like an NHK of Netherlands.
NHK of the Netherlands, which is very impressive. NHK is huge in Japan. Yeah.
I was like, what? Like a PBS of United States or something, right? I think the PBS of Netherlands. Yeah.
So that's very
Yeah, so they're gonna be doing it on December 31st to 3:20 p.m. So they'll be showing the film, and hopefully it will reach to Dutch audience, whether Buddhist or non-Buddhist, and find out something about themselves. That's what I'm hoping. But you know we want to like a Buddhist door global. Hopefully we can collaborate something, and I'm collaborating with the temples that are around the world, United States, especially Jodo Shinshu temples, Zen temples. The film was showcased in San Francisco Zen Center, and they might do another showing, and it just it has a life of its own. But
Yeah,
I do promote because I believe in myself and the film. And if they give a film a chance, I know they will find something special. That's why I do it.
that's why you do it. That's a really profound point. And look, I wish you all the best in this in as you continue this journey. I think as you said, you're sick of this film, but the film has taken on a life.
Oh, you have no idea how sick that I feel about this film. I've watched it so many times, so many times.
you,
I,
you 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 are like a master chef. Like the master chef is sick of his own food. Like he can't wait to serve it to other people, but he doesn't want to eat it himself, right? Yeah.
yeah, something like that. But you just also it's just to you know fulfill the sense of purpose in my life, right?
Hmm.
It's like in Hindu says dharma, like what is your dharma? What is your purpose in your life? What is your job in your life? You know, Buddhist probably say in a different way, but the Hindu say dharma, right?
Yeah,
So
Dharma. Yeah.
it's this dharma is like a teaching of Buddha or something in Buddhism. That's kind of confusing, but dharma I want to use it in a Hindu sense.
Yeah.
So we are born. Why? But maybe there's a reason behind we are born. Maybe we have a dharma to fulfill in this lifetime. And I feel that this is my dharma, and I mean, it doesn't make sense to do this,
Hmm.
but I need to do it because this is something that I was told to do
Yeah.
by the dharma. So yes.
Well, from art to sculptures to discipline and to reception, audience reception, and to ultimately fulfilling a deep purpose in your life, fulfilling dharma. I'm so glad that you were able to spare some time to come on and share your film with us. And I will let everybody know on the Facebook page that that you have some links, and I will paste them on there. Um, Here we are. Thank you so much, Yujiro, for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much, Raymond,
Y-
for having me. Always pleasure.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Uh, Next episode, we will talk to another different special guest. But for now, I hope you enjoyed very much this very unique conversation with Yujiro Seki, writer, producer, and director of Carving the Divine. You can find more in the links that I'm going to post in a few seconds. And I hope everyone from Hong Kong to Kuala Lumpur to New York have a wonderful evening and a very good night to you, Yujiro, in Japan.
Good night, Raymond. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.